Can I say it's my pleasure to invite you all to the Palace of Westminster. It's really good that Shabana's here as well. I think Grandpa Keith Vaz will be joining us as well in a while. Is Keith still coming? It's really important that we give Keith the respect he deserves. He's an old man, and you must tease him about his age when he comes. He's been an MP for 25 years. The year that Keith was elected was 1987. And when Keith was elected, along with three other parliamentarians, Paul Boateng, Bernie Grant and Diane Abbott, the only ethnic minorities in this place were the cleaners. And it's really important you just remember that. It's just 25 years ago. The only people here were the cleaners. And so you imagine the impact having four brown faces in this place had, because let's be frank, there were people making our laws, people governing your parents, your grandparents, your aunties and your uncles, who had very little contact with people who looked like you. Now, in my view, that means the legislation, the laws they passed, had very little positive impact on people who look like you and on the communities that we live in. And so one of the reasons why I'm hoping at least some of you leave here thinking about a career in politics and joining Shabana, Keith and myself in Parliament is because I'm a firm believer in having a Parliament that reflects and represents our community leads to laws that represent and reflect our community far better. And if you look at the history of Parliament, there were before Keith Vaz and the other three, 1987, in the last century and early this century, there were three Asians parliamentarians, two in the 19th century, one of them in the early 20th century. Nobody post-Second World War. You bear in mind mass migration post-Second World War. I genuinely believe that actually in the last 20, 30 years, some of the reasons why legislation's got a bit better, not perfect, a bit better, is because you have people here who've got more life experiences about the communities we come from. When Mohammed Sarwar was elected an MP in 1997, he was the first MP to have to say to the administrators of this place, by the way, when they asked him, would you like the Old Testament or the New Testament, or what other Bible version would you like? He said, actually, I wouldn't mind a Quran if that's all right. And so Mohammed Sarwar was the first MP who swore an oath using the Quran. And it's very, very important for you to realise that even now, new barriers are breaking down. So when I became, I have this very posh two words before my name called Right Honourable, which means nothing really. But when I went to the palace to swear an oath, they'd not had a Quran at the palace for you to swear an oath. Now, that's not because they're necessarily prejudiced or because they're ignorant or because they don't care about us. It's because nobody's done that before. And so when I speak particularly to the more youngsters amongst you, it's really important you realise that actually if I can do it, anybody can do it. And if Keith can do it, then definitely anybody can do it. And if Shabana can do it, then definitely anybody can do it. But it's really important that you aspire to come to this place. Because look, the better this place is at representing our communities, the better laws we're going to make. And I want to just, a couple of stats which I discovered was that the percentage of MPs in Parliament, there are 650 MPs, 650, only 4.3% are black, Asian, minority, ethnic. It should be almost 3 times that much if it reflects the society we live in. Now, the civil service, roughly speaking, 9% of those are black, Asian, minority, ethnic, but amongst senior ranks, it falls below 5%. The police service, less than 5% of the police service are black, Asian, minority, ethnic. Amongst senior police officers, very, very, very low. Amongst teachers, I was very lucky. The school I went to, secondary school, had an Asian head teacher who was of Islamic faith. Big impact on me realising the most senior guy in the school could be like me. 6.3% of all teachers are black, Asian, minority, ethnic. Only 2% of head teachers. The armed forces, there are 6% in the armed services, a very, very small percentage who are ethnic minority. The NHS, we all assume the NHS is quite diverse. Well, the numbers of consultants is very, very low. Now, why do I say that? Not to depress you, but to make you realise, look, there are a number of explanations for this. If you want, we can all feel sorry for ourselves and say it's discrimination, let's pack up our bags and become bus drivers, all right? My dad was a bus driver, so I'm not embarrassed of saying that. Or you can say, actually, you know what? What we should do is aspire to be politicians, to be teachers, to be lawyers, to be in the armed services, to be consultants, and work hard and aspire to do so. So I don't want to say too much more because I'm really keen to take questions from you and get involved in a dialogue with you, except for one thing before I end. The first time I went into Parliament was after I was elected a Member of Parliament. So the fact that we have events like this where you come to Parliament is very, very important, because you should all feel at ease in this place. Shabana and I often mix with other MPs, and what's remarkable is how many of them have an uncle who's an MP, or a cousin who's an MP, or a grandfather who's an MP. Now, Shabana and I weren't as fortunate, and I doubt whether, unless my daughters are here, any of you are fortunate to have parents or older relations who are members of Parliament. So use Shabana and myself and Keith when he comes as a resource to ask us questions, how you can do it. My final thing is this, you know, there are many of you who will say, actually, especially bearing in mind this weekend, to be a politician you've got to be a bit dodgy and a bit corrupt. There are some who are. But actually being a politician and politics is a virtuous profession. If you look at most of the positive achievements over the last 40, 50 years, they come about politics and politicians. But if you look at some of the things that make you most angry, they've also been done by politicians and politics. So it can be a source of good and a source for bad. But if you don't get involved, don't assume somebody else won't. And that's what somebody else will. And that's why it's really important that you get involved. So we have the good guys in Parliament, people who represent our community in Parliament, rather than the bad guys. So thank you. I look forward to the Q&A.